What if one false accusation could destroy an honest cowboy's entire life? In today's unforgettable Wild West story, witness how Jake Dawson fights for his honor without anger or revenge. Stay until the emotional ending to discover the truth that changes everything. If you enjoy powerful Western stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more. Jake Dawson had spent nearly 10 years building a name that every rancher in Montana Territory respected. He was known as the cowboy who never lied, never stole another man's cattle, and never walked away from hard work. Long before sunrise, he was always the first to enter the stables and the last to leave after feeding every horse. Even travelers passing through Cedar Ridge often heard people say that if Jake Dawson gave his word, it was stronger than a written contract. That reputation meant everything to him because it was all he had inherited from his late father, who had taught him that a cowboy without honor owned nothing at all. The afternoon had begun like any other. Jake knelt beside a weathered saddle, replacing a cracked leather strap while humming an old trail song. Around him, ranch hands carried hay bales, the blacksmith hammered glowing iron, and horses stomped impatiently inside their stalls. Dust floated through the warm sunlight as the smell of fresh leather filled the stable. Everyone knew that. Margaret Collins, the wealthy owner of Cedar Ridge Ranch, was expected to inspect the property. Her visits usually made every worker nervous because she demanded perfection and never tolerated careless mistakes from anyone under her employment. When Margaret entered the stable wearing an elegant riding outfit, every cowboy politely removed his hat. She confidently walked between the horses, checking each stall and asking sharp questions about supplies, feed, and recent repairs. Jake remained focused on his work, only lifting his eyes now and then to observe the restless horses tied behind her. One young black stallion had become increasingly nervous after a loud hammer strike echoed through the barn. Its ears flattened, its muscles tightened, and the worn rope securing it began slowly pulling away from the wooden post without anyone else noticing the danger. Margaret stopped only a few feet away from Jake and bent down to inspect a saddle blanket lying on the ground. At that exact moment, she quickly turned toward him with an angry expression. Pointing directly at Jake, she declared in a loud voice, "Every time I bend over, your eyes are under my skirt. Don't you dare deny it." Her accusation echoed through the stable, freezing every conversation. Cowboys lowered their tools, stable boys stared in disbelief, and even the blacksmith paused his hammer in midair. Within seconds, silence spread across the entire barn like a sudden winter storm. Jake slowly stood, removed his hat respectfully, and looked Margaret straight in the eyes without showing anger. His face had turned pale, not because he feared punishment, but because he understood how quickly such words could destroy a man's life. Calmly, he answered, "Ma'am, I wasn't. Looking at you, that stallion behind you has nearly broken its rope. If it charges, you'll be standing right in its path." His voice remained steady, but few people believed him. Most workers assumed he had invented the story simply to escape embarrassment after being publicly accused by the ranch owner herself. Before anyone could respond, the frightened stallion suddenly jerked backward with tremendous force. The old rope snapped against the wooden post, and the horse lunged forward, kicking dust high into the air. Several workers shouted warnings as Margaret instinctively stepped backward, unaware of the danger racing toward her. Jake reacted without hesitation. He rushed between Margaret and the charging animal, grabbed a hanging lead rope, and swung it around the stallion's neck with remarkable speed. The horse fought violently, but Jake planted his boots firmly in the dirt until two nearby ranch hands arrived to help restrain the frightened animal before anyone was injured. Although disaster had been avoided, the uncomfortable silence remained. Margaret looked shaken but said nothing. Pride prevented her from admitting that Jake's warning had been truthful. Instead, she adjusted her gloves, thanked no one, and quietly left the stable. The ranch workers exchanged uncertain glances before returning to their duties, but whispers immediately began spreading across Cedar Ridge. By sunset, different versions of the story had reached every bunkhouse, saloon, and cattle pen. Some believed Jake had behaved improperly, while others insisted he had saved the ranch owner's life. Jake rode home that evening knowing the greatest battle before him would not be against outlaws or wild horses, but against rumors that could destroy the honor he had spent a lifetime earning. The following morning, Margaret Collins awoke earlier than usual, unable to silence the memory of the previous day's events. The image of Jake calmly warning her about the frightened stallion continued to trouble her. Although pride had prevented her from admitting it in front of the ranch hands, deep inside, she wondered whether she had judged an honest man too quickly. She had inherited Cedar Ridge Ranch from her late father, who always reminded her that a leader must never allow anger to replace fairness. Those words echoed through her mind as she dressed for another day, determined to discover the complete truth before making another decision. Instead of announcing another inspection, Margaret quietly walked to the bunkhouse and invited the ranch foreman, Thomas Walker, into her office. She asked him to describe everything exactly as he had seen it, promises. There would be no punishment for speaking honestly. Thomas did not hesitate. He explained that Jake had never looked at Margaret inappropriately. His eyes had remained fixed beyond her because the black stallion had nearly broken free from its worn rope. Thomas admitted he had noticed the danger only after Jake had already risen to protect her. Margaret listened carefully, her confidence beginning to fade with every truthful word. Still uncertain, Margaret questioned two more ranch hands separately so they could not influence each other's answers. To her surprise, both men repeated nearly the same story. One explained that Jake had always been known for respecting every woman who visited the ranch. The other recalled seeing Jake's attention fixed on the horse, not on Margaret herself. Both workers insisted that if Jake had hesitated for even a few seconds, the frightened stallion would have crashed directly into her. Hearing identical accounts from different witnesses left Margaret with little doubt. She realized the mistake she had made before the entire ranch community. Feeling ashamed, Margaret walked alone toward the western pasture, where Jake had been assigned to repair a long stretch of broken fencing. The morning breeze carried the scent of fresh grass, while cattle grazed peacefully nearby. Jake worked quietly, replacing damaged fence posts with the same determination he showed every day. When he noticed Margaret approaching, he respectfully removed his hat, but continued working without resentment or complaint. He did not know why she had come, yet he greeted her with the same courtesy he offered everyone. That simple act of respect made Margaret feel even more embarrassed about yesterday's accusation. After several moments of silence, Margaret finally spoke. Her voice lacked the confidence it usually carried during ranch inspections. She admitted that she had allowed suspicion to cloud her judgment and publicly accused an innocent man. Looking directly at Jake, she offered a sincere apology, saying she regretted damaging the reputation of someone who had actually saved her from danger. She expected anger, disappointment, or at least a harsh reply. Instead, Jake gently smiled and rested his hands on the wooden fence. "A cowboy's honor is worth more than gold," he said quietly. "I don't need revenge, ma'am. I only wanted the truth to be known." Margaret stood speechless for a moment, realizing that Jake possessed something money could never purchase. His dignity remained untouched, despite the humiliation he had suffered. She promised that before sunset, every worker would know the truth. True to her word, she gathered the ranch hands in the main yard and openly admitted that Jake had been innocent from the beginning. She explained how he the loose stallion and acted without hesitation to protect her safety. The public apology surprised everyone. Several workers nodded respectfully toward Jake, while others quietly admitted they had believed the rumors too quickly. News of Margaret's apology spread across Cedar Ridge even faster than the original accusation. Travelers carried the story from one cattle town to another, telling how an honest cowboy had refused to seek revenge despite being falsely accused. Ranch owners began speaking of Jake Dawson as a man whose character had been tested under the harshest circumstances and had emerged even stronger. Months later, whenever young cowboys asked older ranch hands what honor truly meant, they told the story of Jake Dawson. They explained that courage was not only facing danger with a horse or a gun, but also remaining calm when false accusations threatened everything a person had worked to build. Jake's quiet integrity became a legend remembered throughout the Montana frontier for many years afterward.